So 2023 was an incredible year for video games, if not maybe the best year for video games ever. We just got a massive amount of incredible titles, from Hogwarts Legacy to Spider-Man 2 to Starfield and Mortal Kombat 1, and I'm probably just forgetting like a whole range of others right now, but suffice it to say, 2023 was an exceptional year for gaming. Now with 2024 rapidly ramping up, it looks like it's going to be pretty solid overall, maybe not quite hitting the heights as what we got in 2023, but what I did want to do today is talk about some of the games that I am most excited for, and I think I've got about 8 or 9.5 games on this list, I want to say. And just to do a little bit of like kind of house cleaning up front, not every one of these games is going to be a PC exclusive, and some of them will probably remain console exclusives, at least from a time perspective. I think only one will actually end up being like a pure console exclusive, but yeah, all that being said, let's just go ahead and jump right in. And also, I should point out that these are not in any particular order, although they did end up seeming to be loosely in chronological order, so yeah, whatever. Anyways, the first one on my list is definitely going to be the Persona 3 Remake, which is actually called Persona 3 Reload. And the reason that I'm so excited for Persona 3 Reload is it has been on my backlog for an exceptionally long time. I actually started playing Persona 3 Portable back on the PSP like a decade ago at this point, but the problem was I can't remember, I either had a corrupted save or accidentally overwrote my save on my PSP memory stick, and I instantly lost like 20 or 30 hours of progress, and at the time I just did not have the energy to dive back into that world, because if you've ever played a lengthy RPG before, you know that that can be, well, no pun intended, kind of a grind, right? And if you're especially deep into a game like I was, 20 or 30 hours, the idea of slogging back through that isn't always super appealing, even if the game is incredible. However, now that we're getting a full-blown remake of Persona 3, rather than go back and try to revisit that and dig it up out of my backlog, I'm very pumped to play, just a completely new reimagining of this game. Now, if you've already checked out the trailer for it, it looks absolutely gorgeous. I think this is going to be coming to the PS5, Xbox, and PC. I'm not sure how well it's going to perform on the Steam Deck, but that's something that is going to be true of every game on this list that's going to make it to PC, because right now all we can really do is speculate. But yeah, Persona 3 is just an amazing blend of, dungeon crawling and also kind of a slice of life high school simulator, and that's just a really fun time. I have only beaten Persona 4 out of all of the Persona games. I've started Persona 5 on 2 different occasions of getting about 20 hours into it, but at this point I've decided, you know what, I'm going to finish Persona 3 first, since it's been on the backlog the longest, and then I will finally crack into 5 and hopefully be on whenever the next main entry to the series comes out, which I'm assuming will be sometime in the next couple of years. Now, I gotta be honest, the next game on this list is a little bit iffy for me, despite the fact that I've already played the game and know that it is at least fundamentally somewhat fun, somewhat interesting, and definitely hilarious, and that is Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. Now, here's the thing. I got early access to play this in the alpha that they did a couple of months back. Me and a couple of my friends decided we were going to go ahead and check it out on the PS5, and because of the terms of that alpha, I'm not really allowed to speak about what I saw or what I played at any great length. I can only speak in vague generalities that, hey, it was a pretty good time, or I enjoyed my time with Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. And I'll say, I did enjoy my time with it. Now, I did have some concerns, and these are concerns that I had even before I played the alpha, so I don't think I'm breaking any rules here by talking about this, but what I will say is that my first glance at this, at first I was just excited, right, because it is Rocksteady, but as time went on, I started, I think everybody started seeing more and more about what this game was going to entail. It started to look very live servicey, and as somebody who played through the Avengers game, but then really had no desire to ever play it again after I got through the campaign, definitely, some red flags there, right? As much as I really love what they're trying to do with, Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, there's definitely potential for it to go way south and just get completely peppered with microtransactions, but honestly, if they can avoid that trap, there is something fun here. And from what I've played so far, I did enjoy my time with it. I just can't speak about it at any great, particular length. I'll just say that it was hilarious. I really love what they did with the characters, and honestly, one of the things that's really drawing me to it is the fact that this will be Kevin Conroy's last performance as Batman, and that on its own merit is kind of enough to draw me in, just so I can see that performance all the way through, because, Kevin Conroy was the GOAT. So yeah, Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, definitely on my list, although I will say that I'm cautiously optimistic on this one. Alright, next up is definitely a weird one, and I've been trying to keep an eye on it, but not a super close look on it, because I really don't want to spoil a ton of it for myself, because I do feel like a lot of video game trailers nowadays kind of give you a whole lot more than what you've bargained for, and I don't want to, completely spoil what the experience might bring, because it looks just completely bonkers and off the wall and completely enthralling, and that is Pacific Drive, which I think drops on February 22nd. Now, as far as I know, the basic premise for Pacific Drive is that you are stuck in kind of an apocalyptic situation. You're trying to escape the forest of the Pacific Northwest, and you can either traverse the area either on foot or in a station wagon. Now that station wagon can take damage, and periodically at your garage you can go ahead and upgrade it with various, resources and things that you find out in the wild. And I will say, I think it's mostly the way they framed this trailer and how just completely stylish it looks that's really drawing me in, because if you just told me, hey, there's going to be another survival crafting game and there's a car this time, I probably wouldn't be that excited about it. But the fact that they've somehow managed to channel kind of an oxen-free sort of look about it and just make it look really, really interesting, I think that's what's drawing me in the most about this. I think it's a single-player only adventure. I don't believe this is a multiplayer game. I'll probably have to double-check that. But yeah, if you've seen the announcement trailer for this, or the gameplay trailer, or really just any of the footage they've released so far, it's definitely an interesting looking game, right? And again, I award big points for originality and creativity because, so often we just get a ton of games that just kind of fall into the same genre. They just kind of riff off of other games that have already come before them, but this looks to be fairly unique, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. And next up, coming out about a week later on February 29th, we've got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm pretty pumped for this because when Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, I got completely absorbed with that game and beat it in about a week. Now, I did get to play it a little bit early because I actually did go to E3 2019, the last one we had before it, kind of went the way of the dodo and everything. And I got to play the game briefly there and was incredibly impressed with it. And then when the full release came out, I just got completely sucked in and blitzed through the entire thing in about a week. But here's the weird thing is I don't have a ton of nostalgic fondness for the original Final Fantasy VII. I had that game, I had friends who were really fond of that game way back in high school, but even though I played it, I didn't really get into it as much as I did Final Fantasy VIII. So Final Fantasy VII really didn't hold a ton of appeal for me just on the nostalgic front alone. However, once I really got into the remake, just the mechanics, the presentation, the way they really fleshed out those characters and the way the story unfolded, all of those things just really got their hooks in me, and I could not put the game down. So in turn, I am very excited to see that story continue and kind of figure out where it goes, because again, I don't have some just in my mind some idea of how the story should go based on some preconceived notion or beliefs about Final Fantasy VII. So I'm thrilled to see where the story is actually going to end up going, what's going to happen with these different characters. And also, it does remind me that I still need to finish Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, which I think is still riding on my backlog right now. I picked up that remake and have barely touched it, so yeah. Definitely going to be looking forward to that. Again, no great fondness for the original, but it is just an eye-searingly beautiful game, and I'm sure we're going to get exactly that and more from the sequel. Alright, and this next title is one that we don't have an official solid release date for. We just kind of have a window where we know it's coming out in 2024, at least if we're to believe that recent PlayStation highlights video where they talked about all the games they have coming out this year, and that is the Silent Hill 2 remake. Now, the original Silent Hill 2 was one of my favorite games of all time. I periodically replay it every now and then just because it is a wonderful, wonderful horror game that is chock full of just incredible atmosphere and just a ton of weird little brilliant design decisions that make it just an iconic horror game in its own right. But I am a little bit concerned, right? I have heard curious things about Bloober Team, and I guess my big hope here is that Konami is keeping them on a very short leash so that they can, basically stick to the original story of Silent Hill 2 without taking too many liberties that might, somehow corrupt it in their attempt to, bring it up to the modern age. But I am very, very excited for this game. And honestly, Silent Hill Ascension is pretty bad. I tried to get into it. I really did try to give that just like the old college try and appreciate that, game for what it was, but it is a bit of a slog, to put it mildly. And I know Konami is trying to just revive the Silent Hill brand right now through a variety of different projects that they've already outlined, but I don't think Ascension was the correct way to go with that, because man, that did not leave a great taste in a lot of Silent Hill players' mouths. And if you're a Silent Hill fan, then you've essentially been starving for at least a decade since you got a real Silent Hill game. And if you're a Team Silent purist, like I guess I kinda am, then you really haven't had a great Silent Hill experience in almost 20 years, which is just tragic. So there is just a ton of pressure on the Silent Hill 2 remake to be good. I really hope that it is, and obviously I'll be keeping a very keen eye on whenever that game does get an official release date. It is coming to PC. I imagine I will probably end up picking it up for the PS5 just because it feels right for me to re-experience that game on a PlayStation. But yeah, ultimately we're just going to have to keep an eye out, see what the critics say, and just hope for the best on this one. Alright, next up, taking a sharp turn away from horror and towards something that will undeniably be just sickeningly adorable and sweet to look at, is going to be Princess Peach Showtime, which I believe is coming out later in March. Now, here's the thing, as much as I love Mario, as far back as Mario Bros. 2, I've always loved Peach as a playable character. Back then, I just really thought that her kind of floaty move was fairly interesting in that game. And also, I should point out, I think it was last year or the year before, my buddy Fabian from GamerThumb TV actually turned me on to Super Princess Peach, which I completely missed for the DS whenever I had that that system like years ago. And I finally did end up playing it on an emulator and found that to be really interesting as well. Now, the thing about Princess Peach Showtime is I don't think this is purely speaking a platformer or anything. Rather, I think this is going to be a bespoke little adventure game, kind of in the vein of Luigi's Mansion, where, you know, that's obviously not the same thing as playing like a 3D Mario platformer or a 2D Mario platformer. Rather, this is going to be, you know, again, sort of kind of like, I guess like an adventure puzzle game, I guess you would say. At least that's what it looks like based on the trailer that I've seen so far. And I'm really looking forward to this because, you know, I tend to play a lot of games that are mature rated, hyper violent, and it is nice to just sort of chill out with something that's a little bit quieter, right? A little bit happier every now and then. And Nintendo is obviously great at that. Now, of course, this is going to be coming to the Steam Deck unless you manage to squeeze it on there by some illicit means, at least I'm sure in the eyes of Nintendo. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to Princess Peach's Showtime, and hopefully that's going to be just a fun experience or kind of a nice palate cleanser between some of the bigger titles that I'm anticipating in 2024. And speaking of cutesy looking games, even though this will not be a cutesy game at all, and rather I am sure it will earn its mature rating, I am very much looking forward to South Park Snow Day, which is also dropping in March, which honestly that's kind of tragic really. I would have much preferred to play a game like Snow Day in the middle of, you know, like December, January, or February maybe when, you know, we'll probably have actual snow here in Ohio. But you know, honestly, I'm still excited to play this, and I think that the reason I'm most excited about it, I think this one actually is rooted in nostalgia. I actually did have the South Park game on the N64 way back in like 1998, where you start off just like chucking snowballs at things. And that was one of those games that's sort of like the Simpsons game that would come out years later on the 360. I was just really excited to play it because it really did feel like you were in the town of South Park, right? And that was a fairly novel thing. There weren't a lot of games at that time that could really recreate what you'd seen, you know, like in television or shows very well. But South Park seemed to do a pretty good job with it, right? And I think a lot of that is obviously because you've got animated characters, and that's a little bit easier to translate on, you know, 5th gen hardware as, you know, an animated affair rather than trying to be photorealistic like so many games strive for today. But yeah, this game's going to be $29.99 or like $230 if you want to go for THQ's very expensive collector's edition, which I'll show some of that footage on screen right now. But ultimately, I'm hoping this is just like a fun, goofy little co-op game. I'm sure it's not going to be a whole lot more than that, again, as a budget price $29.99 game. But for me, a lot of the draw, again, is going to be the nostalgia of just sort of revisiting a vision of South Park that is more, you know, accurate to the show. Not that I couldn't get, I guess, something similar from The Fractured But Whole or, you know, The Stick of Truth or something, but, you know, a fully 3D environment where, you know, I'm just, you know, bombing around with friends, engaging in just goofy snowball fights. Like, that sounds like a whole lot of fun, and I can't wait to check it out. And finally, the last full game on this list is one that I realize now I probably should have put adjacent to the Silent Hill 2 remake, and that is the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, which I think right now is also slated just to come out sometime in 2024. Now, there is already a place on Steam where you can go ahead and pre-order this one, I believe, or at least they have the page live right now. So I have to imagine it's going to launch at the same time on the PlayStation as it does on PC, or maybe it will be a timed PlayStation exclusive. I'm kind of second guessing myself right now, but long story short, I love the original Metal Gear Solid. I love Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear Solid 3 I started, but sadly never got to finish, and I let it rot in my backlog. So, you know, the same way I never got a chance to finish Persona 3, I'm hoping that this will kind of let me redeem myself and finally experience what Metal Gear Solid 3 was like, albeit with all of the, you know, just glorious improvements of next generation graphics, and I'm sure some really nice quality of life enhancements too. So I'm not sure when that's going to drop, but I will definitely be keeping an eye on it, because between what we've seen in just that reveal trailer, which admittedly was fairly brief, but then also what we saw in like that sort of in-engine demo footage that they released not too long ago, this looks like it's shaping up to be a really good time, even though I do feel a little bit dirty that, you know, Kojima's not going to be involved with that at all, but I'm going to try to take those feelings and stuff them deep down the way doctors recommend and just gloss right over it and enjoy my Metal Gear Solid 3. And finally, the last game on this list is not even a full game, rather it's just an expansion to a game that I loved very much and was definitely my game of the year in 2022, and that is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. Or is it Shade of the Erdtree? I can't remember. Anyways, whatever it is, as soon as that expansion drops, I'm going to be all over it because I want me some more Elden Ring. I've beaten it 2 or 3 times at this point between the PlayStation and Xbox. I have another character that's going on the PC version that I'm trying to play on the ultra-wide monitor back there so I can really just, you know, soak in the entirety of the beauty of the lands between. But yeah, I will definitely be looking forward to that, and we're not even sure if it's going to come out in 2024. I'm just very hopeful at this point. So yeah, there you have it. Those are all the games that I'm most excited for in 2024. Most of them will be available on PC. Obviously, how well they're going to perform on the deck is going to be, you know, purely speculative at this point. We're just going to have to wait and see. But hey, what about you? Are there any particular games that you are very excited to check out in 2024, or something I neglected to mention here? If so, please do let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for your time and hanging out here on the channel. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.